Now let's talk about my baby sister, Judith, who was exactly 10 years younger than I. I remember that my mother was pregnant, and I knew she was due in March. And I just prayed. Oh, for some reason, I prayed and prayed and prayed. Let the baby be born on my birthday. Let the baby be born on my birthday. And I came home from school that day on my birthday, and Mama was still there pregnant. I was so disappointed. It would be 2 more weeks before Judith would be born. Now, Judith was the youngest, but it was almost like, you ever see them kids that come here and it's like they've been here before? Kind of a wise, older soul she was. To fully understand who Judith was, I decided to insert this clip from the audiobook, Whose Apple Is It Anyway? Now, I edited this clip so that you could see the situation I was in. You can see Judith enter that scene and then get a full understanding of who she was. Here's a clip from the audiobook, Whose Apple Is It Anyway? One weekend, I wound up at work knowing the office was closed. Next thing I knew, I was pacing the floor and crying out to God in hopeless desperation. I don't remember all I said, but I do remember telling him, I am so frustrated. What is going on? You know the drill, the typical crybaby jag he's heard from all of us. I am so angry. I don't know what's going on, I yelled. Little did I know that I was blaming everybody and everything for my own situation. Every relationship I had with a man ended in emotional and financial devastation. I was caught in a cycle of constant bad choices. There I was on the heels of my second divorce, and already I was caught in another relationship with a man that was nothing like what I desired or deserved. None of them ever were. I was a discombobulated, twisted, jumbled, hot mess consumed with anxiety, depression, anger, fear, confusion, and the loneliness of having to once again suck it up, stuff it, and deal with the drama that was my life. Bankruptcy and eviction were imminent. I called my baby sister. I must have sounded pretty bad because all she said was, I'm on my way. In a futile attempt to soothe myself, I started walking the office parking lot. I must have resembled a mad woman looking for a fight. Knowing from experience how aggressive the local geese were, I walked right through them, picturing myself on the corner of one of the busiest intersections in Grand Rapids, East Beltline and Leonard, windmill swinging all comers as if each represented some idiot who had made my life miserable. Right then, I could have taken them down one at a time. Any other time, they would have been looking for a fight. At the slightest provocation, they would strike anybody leaving the building. But that day, just my luck, no takers. I wondered aloud how I must have looked in that empty parking lot, getting my march on. Maybe they'll think I'm out here exercising. One look at the cigarette I was madly puffing in marching band cadence, I thought, dead giveaway, that can't be it. After a while, I just didn't care. I was going to walk until I fell out or felt better. I looked up and saw my sister Judith's car, Saved by the Bell. We sat on the curb, not saying much at first. With the desperation on my face, she probably didn't know whether to ask questions or make that call. I unloaded on her about my financial woes, relationship problems, and my entire miserable existence. I was tired of being let down all the time. Who was ever there for me when I needed it? I had nothing to show for a miserable mess of a marriage other than a set of divorce papers and a boatload of debt. All compliments of my ex-husband who, for the better part of the marriage, was either in prison or living a good life on my dime. I was tired of starting over alone. Breaking a lengthy silence, Judith called my attention to a little seagull meandering toward us. Look at him. He's not worried about anything, she laughed. I looked at the little guy waddling around without a care or thought and said, shoot, he doesn't have to pay rent. The youngest of 3 girls, Judith was the baby in the family. I'm the oldest, so I called her baby sister. Between us is Susan, little sister. But don't be fooled by birth order because although she was the baby, we always said Judith was born 30 years old. She just had a wiser soul. With a few well-placed words, she could deliver the truth with disarming impact, and the meaning is never in question. She'll make you laugh and cry as you recover from the blow, and in this case, she did not disappoint. I should have expected nothing less. She dropped the hammer. In 8 simple words, she landed an indelibly resounding blow. You can't be in love with somebody's potential. There was. She knew me. She knew I saw others as God created them, their potential. The whole time ignoring what life experience had twisted them into. It was July 28th, 2014, when she passed away. And I was there when she passed. I was in the hospital room. But what had happened was she started having this slew of physical problems. And they were treating everything, irritable bowel syndrome, everything, diverticulitis, everything was going on. Her thyroid was going on. She had Graves' disease going on. Her gastrointestinal system was all whacked out. And they kept shooting her with a bunch of antibiotics. And eventually she got a diagnosis of stage 4 colon cancer. Stage 4 is pretty much, they can't do much about it, and she had chosen not to have chemo because she wasn't tolerating it well. But that wasn't the only thing. My sister also, as I was in a domestic violence situation. Now hers was much worse than mine because he had hit her across the face with a cast iron skillet, and the skillet cracked. That's how hard he hit her. And from then on, she had problems with a nerve over here, and the nerve that it was very it was positioned in such a way that there was no doctor in Grand Rapids really that was going to deal with it. They weren't going to do it. They knew it was twisted around something, yada yada, but it gave her terrible jaw pain. I mean, she really suffered with that. Eventually they got a specialist who went in there and unraveled all that, but it constituted some kind of brain surgery involved, and she had problems with that, where I remember having to visit her in the hospital and she had a drain coming out of here. And then after that, she got the stage 4 diagnosis. She didn't even make it out of her 40s, y'all. And I was in such denial. And you may not agree with me on this, but I've heard other stories like this. So everybody's there in the room, and the doctors told her that whatever had happened was hopeless. And I'm just sitting in that room. I've been in denial the whole time she was sick. They gave her that final diagnosis and said there was nothing more they could do. And when she came to my door, I told them, you ain't going nowhere. You got to stay around for me to aggravate you. And I was still in strong denial, sitting there by her deathbed. And I was there, and I was there, and I was there for hours and hours and hours. And my baby sister kept seeing Ezekiel, and she's calling out people from the Bible that she says she was seeing and everything. And I was just sitting there. I got up to take a break. No more than 5 minutes, if that. And while I was out of the room, she passed. It was almost like I was the one holding her up. So, did I grieve that? No. You know me. No, did not. Did not really grieve that. Don't remember doing much crying about it. And it was some 4 years later, I was doing a conference, and there was this woman there that reminded me of my sister. And by the time I got up there to speak, I was ugly crying, y'all. Okay, I decided to put in a clip from the conference.
Well, thanks a lot, Karen. I don't even care what it looks like now. Put on the wrong makeup so every little streak can show how we can kill. So it ain't enough for me to walk up in here. Nicole, her mother, I found out is a blood relative. Crystal stuck by my baby sister till her dying breath. I haven't cried about that. And then I'm sitting next to a lady that just keeps reminding me of my sister. She got her smile, her hair doing everything. So I'm just a wreck up here. right? They ain't even thinking, you guys. Oh my goodness. And then, make it worse, then Tracy's husband walk up in here, surprise her. Okay, it's like, just got through having a long conversation about, is there any good man still out here? Okay, so she already tried to break me down. My baby sister's been dead almost 5 years. I'm finally crying about it in public, right? Oh, girl, my husband just surprised me. Oh, my goodness, and I go again. And then Carol's. Oh, my goodness. I don't even want to talk about me here today, you guys. I really want to talk to you. All you got to do is read my Bible, know that I'm a walking hot mess. And yeah, I've accomplished some things, but it wasn't from not being stuck on stupid. Crystal will vouch for that. Nicole, maybe she heard some stories. There's a lot of people in the room, my daughter, that can tell you that it's not all about where you end up. What I want to talk to you guys about is where you are right now. One of the worst mistakes I ever made was stuffing a rape that I endured. I didn't tell anybody about this rape. If I said anything at all, I have told the story. Why? Because I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault. I thought I deserved it. I was raised with
I was ugly crying, and I just had to come clean with the audience about what was tripping me out. That I had never grieved my sister's passing. I pulled it together enough to give that speech, but a couple of really wonderful things happened at some place. I've got clips of that speech up here too. Maybe I'll put a link to it. I wasn't looking my best, so maybe I'll put a link to it. Okay? But I ran across an email today that I had written in response to the event planners, the organization that I had done it under, and said everybody really got something out of what I said and everything. And part of what I said was that it's important for us to be able to quit running from and to own and turn around and face our pain. And it'll be a while, but eventually we can embrace that as our superpower. And the importance of that being that unless I deal with my pain, own it, and face it, and begin walking through the healing process, I can't sit in those ashes with my sister when she's in the fire. That was something that resonated with the crowd. Now, as I read this email from 2018, I saw that it was a real blessing, not only in my finally grieving my sister's death, but there was a real blessing in the fact that God gave me a special message. My daughter and her husband videotaped that event. According to this email, and I don't remember any of it, there was somebody at that conference that said that my daughter sat in the ashes with them when they needed it, that my daughter was that person for them. And apparently somebody, I don't even know, on Facebook private messaged me to tell me the same thing about my daughter, that she had been sat in that pain with them as they came through the healing process. And behind that, this email reminded me that God had given me the blessing of telling me through that he had redeemed how my life choices had negatively impacted my children. And that was such a release and such a relief for me at that time. So that conference was a blessing to me in so many ways. Apparently, my modus operandi is don't grieve nothing in your face. It'll catch up with you later. Which I'm not suggesting y'all do that. That ain't real cool, okay? And I remember my baby sister Judith kind of got mad at me when I was going to school like a mad woman. And when I announced to the family that I was going to go from my bachelor's into my master's right away, she got heartless with me. You're going to still go to school? You ain't going to be around and you're going to be too busy and yada, yada, yada. And I thought, Back then, I didn't give a about what nobody thought. I didn't care that I should look at that as her caring about me. It's like, whatever, you'll get over it because I'm fitting to do this. Just going to school like a man woman. Now, that turned out to be a positive thing for me to go back to school. The nightmares ended. No more nightmares about running down the hall and missing classes. None of that anymore. And the program that I entered at Calvin College was an accelerated program for people who had lives, grown people that had lives and jobs, so that I went to school 1 day a week for like 4 hours. And then I had to write this, 15-month applied research project. It was like writing a freaking dissertation at your bachelor's level. I guess they call it a thesis. The minute I graduated that program, they shut it down. It was so weird. It was so weird. It was like that door opened, that door closed. Had I not taken that opportunity and been obedient to that opportunity that God gave me at that time, I would have missed out. And then I went into my master's where I could just do it like 1 day a week or something. Anyway, it worked out with my job and everything. So let me tell you what happened about this 15-month applied research project. The way the program was designed is that you studied something related to your everyday real job. And I was in public administration, and we were administering the nutrition assistance program, school lunch, school breakfast, WIC, food stamps, all of that. And I could not bring myself, y'all, to write for 15 months about the freaking food stamps, okay? I'm pushing paper every day, grateful for my good government job, but it wasn't nothing exciting and definitely had nothing to do with what I went into in academics. But I said, so, okay. At that time, I didn't have a computer at home, and so what would happen is my husband would drop me off down at campus, and I would go to the computer lab to write whatever I had to write for whatever assignment. So we're on our way there, and I still don't really, y'all. So this is the deal. I'm supposed to write this and tell them what I'm going to do my thing on. I wasn't interested in food stamps. So I didn't know what I was going to write it on. And on our way to the computer lab, the word recidivism came to me. Had ever thought of the word, wasn't quite sure what the heck it meant. So I said, well, I'm going to go in here and pull some. Okay, y'all, this back in the 90s. We couldn't do a bunch of crap online, so I had to go to the actual catalog, those drawers you pull out at the library, and look stuff up. So anyway, I decided that I was going to do my project on recidivism. What causes prisoners to keep going back to prison over and over again? Now, I did get approval from the instructors to do that instead of something on my job, which I was so grateful for. But this was a journey for me because I learned so much. Now, Calvin University is a Christian college, so I could do this research based on my own personal beliefs and my Christianity. So I did it from the Christian perspective of what the heck is going on here. And I did the research. I got an A on it. So I had to not only study this out, but I had to suggest what to do to mitigate whatever the research showed me was the problem. Exodus Correctional Ministries, it was time for their annual banquet. And so I walk in there thinking I'm just going to eat a meal and listen to a bunch of speeches. And he comes up to me and he asked me, his name was Gene, he was the guy that heads the whole ministry. And he asked me, do you mind if I quote from your research in my speech? I said, oh, sure, absolutely, absolutely. And pretty soon he comes and he tells me this. He said, we've got a meeting tomorrow with Prison Fellowship and Hope Network. Hope Network was a community program for people with developmental disabilities. That's always been their forte. So how they began to get into this whole ex-offender thing, I don't know what all that backstory was, but they asked me to come to that meeting the next day. So I skipped off work and went to the meeting. So I walk in here to this conference room, and you got the vice president of strategic initiatives of prison fellowship at the table. You got the CEO of Hope Network at the table. There were several other people, Exits Correctional Ministries, at the table. And I look, and there are 3 copies of my applied research project on the table. One of them was in front of the vice president of strategic initiatives of prison fellowship. Long story short, they asked me to co-write the grant. I helped co-write the grant. We got $750,000 to start the program I suggested in my research, and the rest is history. So, dropping recidivism in my head 2 years before resulted in that. It was basically a one-stop shop type of thing where they don't have to run all over Miss Nellie's house to get their services. They get assessed in-house, and the case management happens in-house, and everything's coordinated in-house. Somebody at my work said, I would be bouncing off the walls. Why are you so calm about this? And I just had to be honest. I had to think about saying, you know what? If I had coordinated all of this, I'd be excited, bouncing off the wall and everything else. But this was a God thing, and I can't take credit for that. And that's exactly how I feel about it. My whole life, it's always been one step after the other as God led, not knowing why he was leading me that way or why the timing was as it was, but eventually down the line it would have me positioned for the next opportunity. So that's just how my life has been. It's just one thing after another, and it was just me one step at a time. So I guess you can say my going to school like a mad woman to avoid grieving my dad's death resulted in Exodus Life Change, a program that helped ex-offenders. Now, who could have coordinated that? No human being with a belly button could have figured all of that out and scrambled time and opened up that program for me, shut it down the minute I graduate. It just never would have happened. So this coming Friday will be about the same day that my dad passed away in 1993. Now, can I say that that's why I've been such a B? I don't think so, because I've been a B for 2 months. Okay? If I'd have said it started June 1st, maybe. I can't take that. I don't know what's going on with me, y'all. I don't know what's going on. So another thing that I want to tell you guys is that I'm always telling you how important it is to forgive ourselves for things we did that affected our children. But I realized today, y'all, I've never really gotten over the guilt. Someplace deep inside me, the guilt is there. It's not incapacitating, and it's not in my face every day. But I still grieve. I grieve all of that. You know, I still grieve, and I still feel guilty about it. And I was talking to my sister about that, and she knows my journey. And she was telling me that this is a good thing for me to come to feel that and acknowledge that, because she know my whole thing, y'all, my defense mechanism is intellectualize it. And she was saying that shows some growth in me because I'm not intellectualizing it. I'm not denying it. I let myself feel it. And really, I needed to acknowledge it out of my mouth so that I could move past it. And what she was telling me is she acknowledges that that's there, whatever that is from the past. And then she doesn't go with that. And so that helped me a lot, because it means, okay, I can go ahead and acknowledge that, yeah, I sometimes have feelings of guilt still about my kids, but that doesn't have to rule my life. You know, like God said, He's redeemed my mistakes in my children's lives. Because my daughter, here she is, before she was in her 40s, she had the family she wanted, the husband, great husband. They had bought a house, and this ain't no starter home, y'all, okay? This is not a starter home. Somebody built that house, barely lived there, and sold it to them. Okay? So she's got all the things that I never had. There's nothing in how she's living her life now, serving God and loving the family that God has blessed her with. She loves being a mom, and she's a great mom too, y'all. There's nothing in her past that would have taught her how to be this good a mom, or that would have shown her what it's like to have the type of relationship that she has with her husband now. There's nothing in her life. And that's what God meant when he told me, I have redeemed the effects of your mistakes on your children. Because none of them are living like that. Neither one of them. It's just a blessing, y'all. So anyway, I'm going to end this now because I just needed to get some stuff off my chest. And I thought that I would just have a heart-to-heart with you guys without trying to teach y'all something. Anyway, you know what I'm about to say. Always remember, your greatest power is realized in the truth of who you are. Know that truth.